David stepped through the grand doors of the luxury hotel, immediately struck by the glittering chandeliers and polished marble floors. The lobby buzzed with the chatter of executives, their laughter precise and rehearsed, a rhythm he wasn't accustomed to. He adjusted his tie nervously, feeling the weight of the evening pressing on him. Despite his modest upbringing, he reminded himself that he belonged here tonight. After all, he had earned his place, but the contrast between his everyday life and this opulent world was impossible to ignore. He scanned the room, noting groups of colleagues clustered together, exchanging business cards and subtle gestures that spoke volumes. The air smelled faintly of expensive perfume and polished wood, punctuated by the crisp tang of champagne. David sipped his own drink, attempting to blend in, smiling politely at passing acquaintances. He felt the duality of pride and intimidation, knowing that tonight could shape perceptions of him professionally, while also being acutely aware of the gulf between his reality and the world around him. As he moved deeper into the room, a subtle current of professional rivalry became apparent. Eyes flicked toward him briefly before returning to conversations, some friendly, others calculating. David tried to keep his interactions light, exchanging a few jokes and pleasantries, but the underlying tension was palpable. He reminded himself to stay composed, to appear confident even when anxiety prickled beneath the surface. Every laugh and nod felt like an intricate dance in which he wasn't fully versed. A cluster of executives passed by, discussing a recent merger in low tones, their words dripping with implications David only partially understood. He nodded politely, offering brief commentary where he could, careful not to overstep. The contrast between their effortless poise and his careful deliberation heightened his awareness of the stakes. Each gesture, each sentence seemed loaded with hidden meaning, a test of his ability to navigate the high-stakes social environment of corporate elites. From across the room, he noticed his female boss, Veronica Grant, elegantly poised with a glass of champagne in hand. Her presence commanded attention, yet she moved with a casual ease that David envied. He reminded himself to maintain professionalism, his pulse quickening slightly at the thought of approaching her. She was both intimidating and magnetic, a figure who could influence not only his career, but the perception of him among colleagues. A subtle reminder of the power dynamics woven into every interaction. David found a quiet corner near a buffet table, using it as a moment to collect his thoughts. The hum of conversation and the clinking of glasses created a backdrop that was both comforting and alienating. He reflected briefly on his life as a single father, the challenges that shaped his resilience, and the distance between this world of luxury and his own reality. Yet he also felt a quiet pride. He had earned the right to be here, and tonight was an opportunity to assert himself in ways that mattered both personally and professionally. A few colleagues approached, initiating light conversation about industry trends and weekend plans. David responded with practiced politeness, aware that his words and demeanor were being assessed beyond their content. He noted the subtle cues, the raised eyebrow, the fleeting glance, the slight nod that signaled approval or skepticism. Each interaction, however mundane on the surface, carried weight, reminding him that social acumen was as critical as professional skill in this environment. As the evening unfolded, David became increasingly attuned to the ebb and flow of the room, observing alliances, unspoken hierarchies, and the intricate ballet of small talk and professional maneuvering. The luxury of the hotel, the elegance of the crowd, and the subtle tension of ambition all combined to create a setting that was dazzling yet daunting. He took a deep breath, reminding himself that composure, awareness, and quiet confidence would be his allies tonight, unaware of the unexpected challenge that would soon confront him in the bathroom. David pushed open the heavy restroom door, expecting a brief escape from the noise and formality of the corporate event. The cool air and quiet echo of running faucets offered a momentary relief from the bustling crowd outside. He splashed water on his face, trying to shake off the tension that had built steadily since his arrival. The silence, however, was short-lived. Footsteps approached, deliberate and measured, breaking the temporary calm. He turned slightly, startled, as Veronica Grant, his boss, stepped into the restroom. David blinked, assuming it was a casual follow-up about the evening or a brief discussion regarding work. But the look on her face, a combination of intensity and resolve, immediately dispelled any notion of normalcy. She closed the door behind her with a quiet click, the sound carrying an unspoken weight that instantly made him uneasy. Veronica's presence was commanding, and David felt a sudden tension coil in his stomach. He tried to maintain composure, standing straighter, adjusting his tie nervously. "Is everything okay?" he asked, his voice measured but betraying a hint of apprehension. Her eyes met his with a piercing focus, silently communicating that this encounter was not merely procedural. It carried implications far beyond the ordinary scope of workplace interaction. Outside the doorway, Lisa, a colleague, had paused mid-step, having seen Veronica follow David. Her eyes widened in shock, and she instinctively slowed, unsure whether to enter, intervene, or retreat. The awkwardness of the moment was amplified by her presence. She became an inadvertent witness to a tense and private interaction that should never have been public, heightening the stakes for David. David's pulse quickened as Veronica took a deliberate step closer. He swallowed, trying to steady his voice. "Did you need something from me?" he asked, aware that every word, gesture, and reaction was being assessed under the subtle yet undeniable scrutiny of authority. Her posture suggested control, and her calm, measured breathing contrasted sharply with his rising anxiety, making the encounter feel almost predatory in its intensity. Lisa remained frozen at the edge of the restroom, torn between loyalty to David and fear of professional repercussions. Her presence made every second feel longer, every glance heavier. David could feel the weight of her gaze, amplifying his discomfort, yet he also realized that someone was silently observing, which both unnerved and strangely anchored him in the reality of the moment. Veronica finally spoke, her tone low but firm, blurring the line between professional correction and personal insistence. David struggled to respond, carefully choosing words that asserted his boundaries without provoking conflict. The conversation, though brief, became a delicate negotiation of power, respect, and survival, each sentence carrying the potential to define his standing in the workplace. As the encounter reached its peak, David felt a mixture of fear, disbelief, and frustration. The restroom, meant to be a private refuge, had transformed into a high-stakes arena where authority, gender dynamics, and workplace hierarchy collided. Lisa lingered, unsure of how to intervene, while David braced himself for what would come next, acutely aware that this unexpected confrontation could ripple through his professional and personal life in ways he had never anticipated. Veronica's gaze held David firmly, leaving no room for casual small talk or deflection. Her presence dominated the small restroom, turning the space into an unexpected arena of power and authority. David felt a mix of apprehension and disbelief, the air thick with tension. Every step he took was calculated, every word measured, as he tried to navigate the fine line between asserting himself and avoiding provocation that could jeopardize his position. "I need your attention on something, David," Veronica began, her voice low but unwavering. There was an intensity in her tone that blurred the line between professional directive and personal insistence. David nodded cautiously, careful to maintain composure, even as his pulse raced. He could sense the weight of her expectations pressing down on him, demanding a response that balanced respect and subtle defiance. Lisa remained at the threshold, her eyes wide and frozen. The sight of David cornered by his boss sent a jolt of disbelief through her, yet she hesitated to intervene. Her silence amplified the tension, making David acutely aware of being both scrutinized and observed. The restroom, a space that should have offered privacy, had become a stage for high-stakes interaction, every movement carrying unspoken meaning. David swallowed hard, choosing his words carefully. "I'm listening," he said, keeping his voice steady despite the knot of anxiety in his stomach. Veronica's expression did not soften. Instead, it seemed to sharpen, intensifying the unspoken challenge. He realized that this was not merely about a task or a critique, it was about navigating power dynamics, testing boundaries, and asserting presence under subtle pressure. Her tone shifted slightly, mingling authority with insistence. "I need you to understand the importance of this, David. Your role matters, and so do the decisions you make," she said, each word deliberate. David nodded, aware that the situation demanded precision in both speech and demeanor. Any misstep could be interpreted as insubordination or weakness, yet silence felt equally dangerous, potentially signaling hesitation or lack of engagement. The tension hung heavy, unbroken by the distant hum of the party beyond the restroom walls. David felt his body tense as he considered possible outcomes, balancing self-respect with professional survival. Veronica's eyes never left him, reading intention and reaction with clinical precision. Each second stretched unnaturally, a silent negotiation of authority, personal space, and subtle intimidation that left David both alert and wary. Lisa finally shifted slightly, her movement almost imperceptible, signaling her presence but not intervening. David drew a quiet breath, taking courage from the small acknowledgement that someone outside was witnessing the encounter. He knew that while he was isolated in the moment, he was not entirely alone, an understanding that provided a faint yet crucial measure of reassurance amidst the overwhelming intensity. As the confrontation drew to a tentative pause, David managed to steady his voice and posture, signaling willingness to comply without submission. Veronica's expression softened imperceptibly, a sign that the immediate test had passed. The room still felt charged, the unresolved tension palpable, and David understood that while this moment had ended, the implications of their interaction would ripple through the rest of the evening and perhaps beyond, shaping his professional and emotional landscape. David stepped out of the restroom, the noise of the party hitting him like a wave after the tense stillness inside. Laughter, clinking glasses, and animated conversations filled the grand hall, but he felt detached, almost as if moving through a haze. His hands trembled slightly as he straightened his jacket, trying to steady his breathing. The weight of the confrontation lingered, a gnawing mix of fear and frustration that made it difficult to focus on anything else. He kept his gaze low, avoiding eye contact with anyone as he navigated the crowd. Every smile, nod, and greeting felt performative, requiring effort he didn't have in that moment. Anger burned beneath the surface, not at the party or the colleagues, but at the imbalance of power and the humiliation of being cornered. David reminded himself that maintaining composure was crucial, that any visible weakness could be misinterpreted and used against him. Lisa trailed discreetly behind, careful not to draw attention. She offered a subtle nod of support when their eyes met, a small gesture that grounded him amidst the storm of emotions. Her presence was quietly reassuring, a reminder that he wasn't completely alone in navigating the fallout of the confrontation. Even though words were minimal, the unspoken solidarity helped him reclaim a fraction of his confidence. Finding a quieter corner near the buffet, David took a moment to inhale deeply, attempting to collect his thoughts. The tension in his shoulders remained, but he forced himself to focus on neutral topics, small talk that felt meaningless yet necessary. He reflected on the intensity of the encounter, recognizing how quickly authority could shift from professional guidance to intimidation, and how vulnerable one could feel under such scrutiny. Memories of Veronica's piercing gaze and precise words replayed in his mind, amplifying his anxiety. He grappled with a swirl of emotions, disbelief at her audacity, anger at being cornered, and fear of potential repercussions if he misstepped. The emotional complexity was overwhelming, a mixture of personal and professional stakes colliding in a single moment that refused to fade. He clenched his fists under the table, silently reminding himself to remain calm. Lisa, sensing the depth of his turmoil, offered a few quiet words of encouragement. "You handled it well," she said softly, her voice barely audible over the party. David appreciated the sentiment, but found little comfort in it, knowing the struggle was far from over. Her presence, however, validated his feelings, acknowledging the unfairness of the situation without pushing him into further discomfort or forcing action he wasn't ready to take. As the minutes passed, David attempted to rejoin conversations, laugh when appropriate, and maintain the appearance of a composed professional. Each interaction was a small victory, a testament to his resilience under pressure. Yet, beneath the surface, the emotional residue of the restroom confrontation lingered, a constant reminder of vulnerability in a space he had assumed was neutral and safe. By the time the first hour of the party had passed, David began to regain a sense of equilibrium, though the anxiety remained just below the surface. He understood that the evening would be remembered not just for networking and celebration, but for the unanticipated test of boundaries and the subtle lessons it imparted. The confrontation had left its mark, shaping his perception of power, trust, and the precarious balance of workplace dynamics. David leaned against the polished railing, surveying the room with a detached focus. The party buzzed around him, laughter and conversation blending into an almost hypnotic background hum. Despite the festive atmosphere, his mind was consumed by the restroom confrontation. He considered every possible response, reporting Veronica formally, confronting her privately, or silently letting the incident pass. Each option carried risks, and none felt entirely safe. Reporting her would involve HR, documentation, and likely a drawn-out investigation. He pictured the meticulous questioning, the scrutiny of every detail, and the inevitable speculation among colleagues. The thought of placing his reputation, already delicate from being a single father juggling responsibilities, under such examination made his chest tighten. The potential fallout was daunting, yet he knew it could establish boundaries and protect him from future intimidation. Confronting Veronica privately seemed like a more controlled approach. He imagined a calm, rational conversation, stating his discomfort and expectations clearly. But the memory of her intense presence in the restroom gave him pause. He knew the imbalance of power could make even a polite objection feel risky. There was no guarantee she would respect his boundaries or respond professionally, and a misstep could have consequences far beyond the party. Ignoring the incident entirely tempted him. Staying silent would maintain the facade of compliance, allowing him to navigate the evening without further conflict. Yet, the idea of suppressing his dignity, of letting the humiliation and intimidation go unchallenged, left a bitter taste. He struggled with the moral and emotional implications, knowing that ignoring it might protect him in the short term, but compromise his self-respect in the long term. Lisa approached cautiously, sensing his inner struggle without needing to speak. Her quiet presence was grounding, a reminder that someone else had witnessed the confrontation. Her expression carried empathy, yet she offered no judgment, allowing David the space to weigh his options. For a brief moment, he felt the comfort of silent support, realizing that he wasn't entirely alone, even as the party continued obliviously around him. David considered the balance between personal integrity and professional survival. Each scenario played out in his mind like a high-stakes chess game, with potential moves and consequences cascading unpredictably. He reflected on his responsibilities as a father, knowing that his career stability was crucial, yet he also recognized the importance of modeling self-respect and assertiveness for his child. The complexity of the decision weighed heavily on him as the night progressed. The ambient noise of the party contrasted sharply with the storm of thoughts in David's mind. Conversations, toasts, and laughter carried on without pause, a stark reminder that the world around him remained oblivious to the silent battle he faced internally. He felt the isolation keenly, yet also a resolve slowly forming, a determination to choose a course of action that balanced courage, prudence, and dignity. By the time he took another sip of his drink, David had not yet made a final decision, but a sense of clarity began to emerge. He understood that any choice would require careful navigation, patience, and self-awareness. The evening, once a simple corporate obligation, had transformed into a crucible of personal and professional judgment. With quiet determination, he prepared himself to face Veronica again, knowing that how he responded would shape not only his career, but his sense of self-worth. David left the party briefly, stepping into a quiet corridor outside the ballroom. His mind raced with the events in the restroom, replaying every detail with relentless scrutiny. He knew he needed counsel, someone impartial who could help him navigate the professional and personal stakes of the confrontation. His pulse quickened as he dialed the number of a trusted mentor, hoping for clarity amidst the emotional fog. On the other end, his mentor listened patiently, offering guidance tempered by experience. "Document everything," they advised calmly. "Understand your rights, your options, and the potential consequences. Don't act impulsively, but don't let intimidation go unchecked." David nodded, absorbing the weight of the advice. He realized that every decision now carried both immediate and long-term ramifications for his career and reputation. He recounted the incident in detail, careful to remain factual, omitting emotion but not context. The mentor probed gently, asking questions that helped David clarify his feelings, his boundaries, and the actions he considered appropriate. Each question forced him to confront the depth of his discomfort and the power imbalance he faced, highlighting the subtle challenges of responding to authority while protecting personal integrity. Meanwhile, Lisa, who had been watching the situation unfold, quietly approached. She offered her perspective as a witness, sharing her own discomfort and uncertainty at how to react. Her presence was a reminder that even indirect support could be meaningful, and that navigating power dynamics often required the courage of those willing to observe and act with discretion. David appreciated her insight, realizing he was not entirely isolated. They discussed strategies for addressing Veronica, weighing the merits of a formal HR complaint against a private conversation. His mentor emphasized clarity, documentation, and professionalism, urging David to frame his actions in a way that safeguarded both his career and his dignity. Lisa's feedback added context about workplace culture and social perception, making David aware of the subtle ways colleagues might interpret or misinterpret his actions. David also reflected on the emotional stakes, acknowledging that asserting boundaries was not only a professional necessity, but a personal imperative. He realized that courage did not require confrontation alone. It required preparation, foresight, and the wisdom to act strategically. His mentor reinforced that he could assert himself without creating unnecessary conflict, balancing assertiveness with prudence. By the time the conversation ended, David felt a tentative sense of direction. He knew there were no easy answers, but he now had a framework for moving forward with confidence and care. Lisa's quiet encouragement and his mentor's structured guidance offered both moral support and practical steps, helping him reconcile his fear and anxiety with the need to act decisively. Returning to the ballroom, David felt the weight of the evening differently. The noise and festivities no longer seemed overwhelming. Instead, they were a backdrop to the strategy forming in his mind. He resolved to navigate the remainder of the night with composure, aware that the confrontation with Veronica and the choices ahead would define not only the evening, but the boundaries he intended to maintain in his professional life. David returned to the ballroom with a renewed sense of purpose, moving with quiet confidence that belied the tension still lingering in his chest. He engaged with colleagues politely, listening more than speaking, aware of the subtle power dynamics at play. Each interaction was deliberate, measured, a reflection of the clarity he had gained from his mentor and Lisa. The night felt different, less daunting, more navigable, as he carried himself with newfound composure. He observed Veronica from a distance, noting her demeanor and interactions. Instead of letting fear dictate his behavior, David focused on maintaining professionalism, ready to assert boundaries if necessary. The incident in the restroom had shifted his perspective, revealing the importance of preparedness, observation, and self-respect. He understood that true influence came not from compliance, but from measured, confident action in the face of authority. Later, David discreetly documented the encounter, detailing the events factually and unemotionally. This process offered a sense of control and clarity, providing a reference should he need to escalate the matter. The act of writing became a small act of empowerment, transforming anxiety into strategic planning. He felt a subtle relief, knowing he had concrete steps to protect himself while preserving his dignity. Lisa approached him again, offering a reassuring nod and quiet words of support. David appreciated her presence, recognizing the courage required to witness such an encounter without acting rashly. Her empathy underscored the importance of allies in navigating professional challenges, reminding him that resilience often relied on both internal strength and external support. David reflected on the lessons of the evening, the delicate balance of asserting oneself, the significance of boundaries, and the complexities of authority. He considered his responsibilities as a single father, realizing that maintaining integrity and composure was not only about career survival, but also about modeling strength and dignity for his child. The personal stakes made his decisions all the more meaningful. He resolved to monitor future interactions with Veronica carefully, setting boundaries without confrontation unless necessary. Strategic distancing and clear communication became his tools, allowing him to protect his position while remaining professional. He recognized that empowerment did not always require confrontation. Sometimes it meant navigating challenges with awareness and tact. As the evening wound down, David took a quiet moment alone near the balcony, watching the city lights glitter below. The party continued around him, unaware of the personal trials that had unfolded. He felt a mix of exhaustion, relief, and quiet pride. Despite the intimidation and fear, he had retained his composure, learned critical lessons, and taken steps to protect himself with foresight and integrity. Walking toward the exit, David felt a cautious sense of empowerment. The events of the night had tested him in ways he could not have anticipated, shaping both his professional acumen and personal resilience. As a single father, he realized that navigating authority, ethics, and personal dignity required patience, courage, and strategy. Tonight had ended, but the lessons he carried would influence every choice he made moving forward.